Anthem on the track.
Yeah. Yeah. King shit. Yeah. Yeah. Look. I'm from the city where the bums rich. Skyscrapers block the rays when the sun hits. One time coming, niggas run quick. By the time a baby walk, he got a gun grip. I was made for this. 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 I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this. I was made for 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 this.
I'm backstage with DJ Elektra Rose and Red Pillar, and I want to do a quick segment with these two, man. Get that male-female energy going on. There's a situation in America where if you talk to 10 black people, probably 9 or 8 out of 10 of them grew up in a one-parent household, whether it was the mother missing or whether it's the father missing. So real quick, man, I just, there's a lot of people that, I see grown men that they just never got over it. They just never got over not having a father. They never got over not having a mother. 45 years old, 50 years old. You can see it in their eyes when they talk about women or when they talk about men or how they deal with their mates. So it's something that is a huge impact on our community. One of the things that I guess our grandparents did was they say, well, you know what? We're going to stay together for the sake of the kids. After a generation or two of doing that, I guess we was like, man, fuck that. We not going to suffer, and be miserable just to take care of the kids, man. I can't do it. I can't put up with him or I can't put up with her. Do you think the old way was better when the grandparents, even though they might have been cheating or whatever, when they said, you know what, we going to stay together for the kids? Or do you think it's better to do, because, this is an individual journey, this thing called life. So is it better to pursue that personal happiness so that you could, reflect it to the world? Like, what do you think about that aspect, that change that happened from generation to generation?
I think that it definitely is evident that it is affecting the culture. The mother and the father are the pillars of the household. And when you are missing one, there's no balance. And I think that it's important that you have both dimensions, both parallel universes working together to create balance. I know that I raised my son who, is in college, and he is a stand-up young man, and I'm very proud of, what I'm proud of myself, and I have to pat myself on the back. And I do it only because others do it for me, but I do it for myself because when I see him and I see how intelligent he is, and I see how, the choices he makes sure that he thinks before he does anything. I know that for myself, it wasn't easy, and I know that if there is two parents, it can be, a much easier situation where there's balance. I do know, although he is, he has excelled and he is, excelling, at the same time, I feel that if there was a male counterpart that was consistent in his life, he would, of course, just be doing so much more and so much better, I feel. But at the same time, I'm grateful. I do look at statistics, and yes, a lot of the young men running around, just running the streets and stuff, a lot of them are missing the father, or the mom is working late nights or all day, and she can't really keep an eye on the family because she's working, 40 hours or 2 times that just to pay the rent and put food on the table.
Why do you think that if a man was to come down here and we had several people listen to us and they said, I'm a single father and I raised my daughter, that may sound kind of ridiculous to some people, because some people will say, how the fuck can a man raise a daughter? What you gonna tell her when she get a period? What you gonna tell her about how you gonna do her hair? What you gonna tell her when she go through all these females' emotions? But for some reason, it sounds normal for when we hear, well, I'm a mother and I raised my son. Besides the fact that the father left at home, we think that a woman is able to relate to a man. So why is this so normal to think that a woman, maybe that's the way the universe is designed, I don't know, but why is it normal to think that a woman could relate to a man and raise a man, but it sounds fucking stupid to think that a man could teach a young girl about her period and other things that happen to young women?
Well, I think from my situation, ironically, someone recently asked me about, me raising my son by myself, and they said, well, who taught, like, who was going to teach him how to stand up and pee? I said, well, I had to explain to him how to do it when he goes into the bathroom. Like, okay, this is how you're going to do. You're going to stand in front of the toilet, and you're going to, and this is how you got to do it, the best way that I could have, so when it comes to men raising daughters, again, I don't really know much about that situation. I just know that
Does it sound ridiculous to you?
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous because I did it, but I did it with a male, like a boy. I raised my son, and I don't think that it's ridiculous that a man could raise a little girl. I mean, there are certain things that she's gonna need to see so she can know how women are and how women are, and the same with men. And I think men need that that image to see how a man is supposed to be. Do I believe that a woman can raise a man? Yes, and but to be completely sure about that, I feel that there has to be some type of male figure. So whether it's a coach or some type of mentor, I feel like they need that male energy, just like the young lady, the little girl that is raised by the man. She's going to need some type of female energy to teach her how to be more female or feminine.
I know a lot of individuals, and we hear about it all the time, they're raised in a single parent household. The mother had them at a young age, or the father had them at a young age, so they still want to get their groove on. They still want a companion. They still want to, have their mate. Mm-hmm. So they bring their mate in the household. The mate ends up being abusive to their kid. They just don't like the kid, or they treat them bad or whatever. Do you think that once you're a single parent, do you think it's a bad idea? Let's say you're a woman, so let's say for women, for example, maybe Red could answer for men. Is it a bad idea to bring men around your son or daughter, knowing that there's a chance that that man might not be in your life 5 to 10 years from now, but you're lonely, so you want a mate, you don't have nobody to babysit? What does a female do in a situation like that?
In a situation like that, you get a babysitter. You wait for a babysitter, or you find someone like your mother, your sister, your cousin, someone who is, who will babysit.
What if he wants to meet your child?
No. It depends. Like, it's a time frame. You don't just meet. You don't introduce anyone to your children, and especially like if you're thinking about sleeping with someone, if it's a lustful thing or whatever that no. I mean, ironically, I've met some people recently where we had this discussion, and they were saying that, there's been girlfriends that, this individual has had, and they never met their daughter. Like, he's had like full-on 5-year relationships, and he was like, I'm not introducing them to my daughter until I feel like I'm ready. So I don't think there's a time frame per se, but long-term wise, I just feel like it shouldn't be something short-term to be considered. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm not in agreement with introducing the child to your fling either. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, there's situations where that shit happens, and the child is exposed to multiple partners over a short period of time or a long period of time. And to be honest with you, I feel that causes confusion, in the child. The child might start listening to hip hop, or might become familiar with popular culture, and then they will have a reference point as to, to look at their moms or their father like, damn, you thotting out here, like, what's going on? So I agree with you that that's something, I think that a child really, it really brings about, it really helps the parent, if the parent is aware, if the parent is cognizant that relationships are sacred. And it should show the parent how sacred the child is as well, and how dangerous, or how what's the word, just how risky bringing strangers around a child who you love unconditionally, right? But how do you know that this person that you're bringing into your household or into your sacred space means well, or will instantly fall in love with your child and love your child unconditionally the same way that a parent would love their child because they share DNA with that child? So it's like, damn, are you just smiling and beguiling with my son because you want to hit? You feel me? Are you just nice to my daughter because, if you were not nice, it would not prolong the longevity of the perks that I'm getting from being around or being with you? Some people are just utilizing single women who have benefits, or single women who are working mothers, or single women who have apartments, or single women who have these all kind of perks. You got these dudes that are just they're using women to be, rest havens. And then you have all of the horror stories.
That's what I'm talking about.
Then you have all of the horror stories where people,
Especially if you have a daughter.
exactly, where it's almost like a recurring horror. It's like Saw 1 to 100, where these stories keep coming out about parents who brought men in the house, and when the mother went to work, or when the mother went to sleep, or when the mother went to the store. You understand? These fucking devils, these creatures. And it's also the flip, because I've spoken to a few men who were sexually molested by women. Okay? Little boys getting fellatio, or what they call head, by grown women who were the mama's friends or auntie or babysitter and things of that nature. So it's like knowing the nature of the toxicity that's taking place in some of our people due to what has transgenerational curses, and due to some of the things that have been taking place throughout these eras. It's like, God damn, your hands are tied. But I'm going to let you add on.
No, I agree with you as well. Especially when you have a daughter, it's one of those things that you have to go into protective mode, like, over time. And I mean, from both aspects, son and daughter. I feel that it is one of the things that when you're lonely and you're thinking, okay, maybe I could find a stepfather or stepmother for little JoJo, or the wrong thing to do is to just jump into anything, or the first sweet thing he says or she says, and to take it as take people as their word. You have to just let time show itself. Don't just, again, jump into anything.
All right, but that sounds great. But what if the mother is promiscuous and dude lay down some good fucking pipe? Okay? All of that talk about a babysitter, that shit goes out the window, because your grandmama, your mama, or your auntie, they're not going to watch young Ray Ray every night because you're promiscuous. I'm not, by any means, I'm using examples. The woman, though the man may be promiscuous, whereas he got to get it off, and he just ran into a sister and the sex is A1. She's a what's it, not the trisexual, what's that called?
Pansexual. But that's if they're into everything.
She's a pansexual. She's into everything. You know what I mean? Anything that you throw at her sticks. So he's like, yo, I've been waiting for this. I'm going, I can't help it because what? My lower self, right? Or my sexual nature is stronger than my discernment, or is stronger. I can't help it. I'm like, yo, I don't want to do it, but this nigga's calling me for the 3 a.m. booty call. Am I gonna turn down? He's pulling up in a Bentley. This nigga's sauce. He got too much sauce and he's dripping. I can't tell him no. So it's like he's gonna put the pressure. Every night is not gonna be a hotel session where you get to sneak out and everything. He's like, yo, I'm coming through. Little man is asleep. I'll be out by 6. Not knowing the little man sleeps very light and he hears everything. You know what I mean? Not to mention that mama is making a lot of noise or vice versa, whatever. I'm not targeting one gender. It flips both ways. So I'm just I'm being a quote unquote devil's advocate to just say that shit sounds good with the whole babysitter thing, but I've seen situations where women become dickmatized. I've seen situations where brothers become pussy whipped, you know what I mean? And all of that shit goes out the window and they risk either the safety or the sanctuary of the child for the sexual desires.
Well, let me ask y'all this.
I'm just speaking on a solution, and the solution is what we already know. When you do become all those things, then you run risk. Then you run risk into jeopardizing certain things. So that's just what I feel. I feel like the solution is don't be running for no 3 in the morning dick. I mean, or whatever. None of that booty call stuff. That's the culture because they don't know any better. If you knew better, you do better.
But this is what I'm saying. Even those who know better, I see both points. It's like sometimes you ain't supposed to be doing something, but you're still doing it. Girls know they ain't supposed to be getting with certain niggas that ain't shit, but they still do it.
And the point
Dudes know they shouldn't get with certain girls, but they still do it. What I want to ask y'all too is, what are some ways for those who have a strong sexual desire? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the creative force of the universe. But for those, what would you say to those who have a strong sensual desire and they just can't tame it? They can't control it and they fall victim to it because a brother will throw away his whole fucking family for 5 minutes of pleasure with a prostitute or whatever, vice versa. Give some advice to those people that just got a strong sexual desire and it's not a sin, there's nothing wrong with it. But how can you help those people?
I'm going to utilize the term self-mastery, and it's going to sound very ambiguous, like, yo, you have to practice self-mastery. But if we are to understand our purpose, or we're to understand why we're here, or if we're to understand what makes a person refined, or what makes a person a master, how do you become a master? Some people think masters are taking 4 years out of your life, going into debt and getting a master's degree, or 8 years, or however long that shit takes. We're talking about personal self-mastery. So some of us have these vices. Some people love to watch porn. Some people love to masturbate. Some people love to be promiscuous. They love to bust a nut. They love to squirt. You know what I mean? All of these things. And I'm not being vulgar in my description. I'm just covering all of these bases. And I'm just taking this shit from the most extreme and then I'll scale back. Okay? Some people love to, be in companionship. They have to be in the bed with another warm body, especially during cuffing season. Huh? Okay? So what do you tell these people? So when you say self-mastery, they're like, nigga, I just watch Love and Hip Hop. I just watch, you know what I mean? I just watched some shit on YouTube. I just was on World Star. People don't realize the impact of these frequencies and what's being done to them subliminally and subtly. I remember watching certain videos, and after that shit, I had to do something to satisfy my lower nature because I was getting fed. My lower nature was being fed for a whole fucking hour, and self-mastery did not win over my lower self. So what was I left with? I was left with me sitting there looking at myself in the mirror like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Get your shit together, okay? You know what I mean? What's wrong with you, bro? You got to be stronger. So I would tell that person, because we all are struggling with some kind of vice. Like Blue Pill said earlier, hands up to anybody that doesn't have a fucking shadow. Okay, you have a darker side. Everybody has one. I'm waiting to meet the puritanical who doesn't have one. Everybody has this side that they have to master. Because this side, like Rich said, this is the side that will destroy you. Okay? Many men have fallen because they have not been able to control their desires. They have not gained self-mastery over their lower self. What is the reasons for certain fraternal orders? It is to help man master their lower self, henceforth the apron. Okay, you got to draw circles around your desires. So this is a very then you have people who are addicted to gambling. Then you got people that are addicted to eating ice cream. Then you got people that are addicted to just fucking talking all day. They don't want to stop talking. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that we struggle in. And religion, or so to say, people run to religion to seek sanctuary, and they feel like that's going to help them with their self-mastery. And for some occasions, I've seen it work. I'm not going to bash. I've seen it work. But in some other occasions, I've seen women who used to turn tricks go to Jesus to turn tricks for him, not realizing you just traded one pimp for another. And now there's some imaginary man on the wall who they're worshiping and they're giving all of their energy to, and they don't want to give no love to a real man, but they love this white man on their wall. So it's like self-mastery would be my overall answer as this is what men and women should thrive for, to make themselves a better person. So if you're being challenged by something that you can identify as a vice, that's the pressure, or that is the test that there's a war going on inside. Now, before it's outside, you fighting some shit inside. Everybody fighting some shit. So that's your test. You have to deal with that. Some people's test is promiscuity. It's like I said, some people's test is masturbation. Some people's test is eating fucking pork rinds. The shit is all over. You know what I mean? So once you pass that test, you might get presented with another one, and that would be my answer.
I think when it comes to satisfying yourself, or satisfying that crave, that urge that you get, again, I think there's nothing wrong with, if you have a significant other, y'all get a room, you know, y'all do what y'all gotta do for how many hours y'all gotta do it for. There's nothing wrong with that. I feel that if you are single and you're looking to, yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with dating. You know, a companionship, meeting someone, and y'all are not becoming, you know, physical with one another. That's okay. You know, just going out to movies and stuff. There's different types of sexual types of preferences, types of people. So you have asexual people who are not, they're not sexually active. You know, they prefer the companionship aspects of things. And you have the sapiosexuals or sapiosexuals who like mental stimulation. I mean, they could literally Netflix and chill, like watch videos all day and stimulate each other. YouTube all day. Documentaries with a significant other, but more like in a conversions, you know, conversation wise. You know, that, you know, so that's really what it is for me. I think that it's you know, get a room and enjoy each other's company, period. And if you're by yourself, get a room by yourself. That's how I feel.
Real quick, I think that, I don't want to interject, and I just think that the question that he was asking, yeah, I think the question that Rich was kind of getting at was not being in control of your desires, or not being in control of what is called your lower nature, and throwing it all away, or doing something that you regret later on. Was that what you were referring to?
Yeah.
I think that's what he was talking about.
Well, if you're not in control of your lower self, I mean, I think that if a person is being promiscuous and they're not in control, then of course you're doing something wrong. Not judging, but
yeah. But listen, I would just want to add on. Do we not live in a society that's hypersexualized? Because Blue, I was watching a video that Blue did on the video games. He was talking about the 90s being hyper masculine. What is that called? Hyper masculine. when the rap game, all of the gun busting, the 50 cover and all of that, the niggas getting diesel, shoot 'em up, shoot. Now, post Little Kim, post Foxy era, we went into hypersexuality. Everything is hypersexualized. So when you turn on the radio, if I could pull up a top 10 right now, if I could pull up the not even Billboard, if I could pull up the BDS of what's being spun, right? One Dance, Controller, pop that, you know what I mean? Pop that, whatever. You know, it's a lot of sexual innuendos in these songs, whether it's subtle or not. So the culture, the water in which our children bathe, swim, and drink, what you eat, meaning that what you're watching in your eyes. Did you go to World Star lately? It's a fucking tombstone. A bunch of dead niggas with women twerking all day, every single video. Society, as we know it, has been hypersexualized. Okay, this is the post Little Kim era. This is the post Foxy Brown era, who I was listening to earlier, and she was reminding me of the spell that she cast. This is the post Nicki Minaj era. So everything, remember it down south, as well as in New York, as well as now everywhere else. The modus operandi when you meet a bad shorty, if she identifies herself as a 5-star shorty, is to take her to the strip club first, because she wants to see how you act around titties and ass. So, no. So what do you do when you leave the strip club? As a woman, what do you do after you watch Pornhub? What do you do after you watch Olivia Pope? What do you do after you watch anything that's on the TV that's marketing to your lower? The commercials is marketing to your yoni and to men's phallus, and it's sexual innuendo. So what I'm saying is, everywhere around us is drowning in hypersexuality. So to say that, you know, you just meditate, or no, I didn't say that. I'm not talking about. I'm not putting words in your mouth. But to say or to deny that we are being subtly, this suggestion, this whole shit is an auto suggestion at this point. What do you do to fight that? How do you rise above your lower self? That's a test.
So, since I'm still learning how to rise above my lower self, again, I would just call somebody. Like, I would call my boo. Like, I'm not going to sit there and just not let it affect me. I'm going to call my boo, and then we're going to get some release action going on. What if you don't have a babysitter? Well, if I don't have a babysitter, then that's not happening. I mean, then maybe I'm going to masturbate. But in the bathroom where my baby's asleep, and I don't have to worry about some guy coming in, some creep or some whatever. Yes, if I'm dealing with the lower self, then yes, masturbation is key. Okay. That's what's going to happen.
Now, this is what I want to ask y'all. This term, throughout the whole conversation, y'all keep, and this is the last question. I know they're about to wrap up upstairs. During the whole interview, you keep referring to our sexual urges as our lower nature, and you hear this constantly in what we call the conscious community. Do you think that's a spin-off or how religion says sex is bad? You know, when you're in religion, they be like, sex is bad, sex is bad. Now you're in the conscious community, they say, oh, lower nature, lower nature. But if you look at Kemet, man, they got motherfucking statues of penises and vaginas and cosmic wombs. That shit is everywhere. So why do we call it the lower nature when our ancestors thought that shit must have been? I mean, look at the obelisk in Central Park, the Tekken. What's that supposed to be? A phallus?
It's a phallic symbol.
It's a phallic symbol. So why do we keep referring to it as a lower nature when obviously our ancestors didn't look at it like that?
I'm a Scorpio, so my sign actually rules the lower nature. I'm red pill, so I represent the sacral or the red chakra. So what I'm referring to is not the act of sexual creation. I'm not really referring to the act of copulation. What I'm referring to is the fact that sometimes you are not in control of your nature, meaning that head is taking over your other head, meaning that, you know, the urges to hop on anything at any time. You're not in control of that. There's something that is controlling you. And then when you finish, when you reach an orgasm or when you finish doing what it is that you have to do, you return back to yourself. And you're like, damn, why did I even do that? You regret. Yeah. You fucking lames. You running around letting lames tap. You dig what I'm saying? Based off of the fact that you had a desire. Okay, and that wasn't what it was supposed to do. And being that our generation and the majority of our people do not have an understanding, understanding about what the proper what is sex. What is it to be used for? What are you to use sex for? Are you supposed to be doing it every day? Are you supposed to be scratching an itch whenever you get it? Are you supposed to be bending over, you know what I mean, and doing whatever? Are you supposed to be twerking on Instagram just because? Just because you had a fucking voice in your head say, yo, it's time to twerk. Just because you heard a fucking drum beat and you decided that you want to get on the sync model, hey, you know what I mean? I want to let it go. No, that's being irresponsible. What's making men want to stick their phallus in feces? What's making women want to put on latex dildos and start hitting other chicks? That I'm talking about irresponsible sexual behaviors. I'm talking about not having a grasp over the energies, which are very powerful. Sexual energy, one of the most powerful energies on the world. What is it used for? It's used for creation. What are you creating? What are you creating when when you're doing it without a purpose? What are you creating when you're just scratching an itch? You dig what I'm saying? I'm saying, as a man, what are you creating when you're spilling your semen and losing your life force? What are you creating when you are just jerking off 4 times a day just because? And and because it's terraforming and it's reshaping the way that you treat women, teach women, talk to women, and even lay down with the women. That's what scientific studies have shown. So what I'm saying is, being a victim of a society that has been basically set up by groups of people who are not, this is not the African way. This is the Jewish way, the Ashkenazi Khazar way. This is what they were known for, the filth. This is what they were known for. They're the purveyors of pornography. So all I'm saying, these are the niggas that signed Lil' Kim and a few other people. And they continuously perpetuate that. This is what Hollywood is. The gay capital of the world is Tel Aviv. Okay? So all I'm saying is, we are being programmed and our sexual nature is being usurped. So saying the lower nature means being stuck in your lower self. Is that Christian? No. Because when I study spirituality, when I go into the East, they talk about that. Those big old Tiggo Biddies that's on the wall of Kemet and Angkor Wat and all of these other places, you were dealing with men who were able to control their lower self, or they were able to control their desires, meaning that they were responsible around these women, meaning that if they saw some titties, they wasn't trying to rape women. Okay, or trying to molest women. There was an understanding. That's why certain people were meditating. That's why they relied heavily on herbs and all kind of other things, because it was about being in control, self-mastery. So when I refer to lower self, I'm also referring to self-mastery. I'm also referring to the fact that you can become what is known as an enlightened, elevated being by controlling that nature. So it obviously has something that it obviously has a lot to do with our growth and development. That's all I'm saying.
And interesting enough that you would mention meditate, because you just said when you asked the last question, don't mention meditate. Like if how do you get over it? How do you control it? Well, yes, then it would be meditating, and then it would be turning off the TV or turning off the radio and listening to some YouTube videos from Brother Red Pill right here. I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, it is about self mastery, and if any. I don't know.
Go ahead. Do your thing. Now do your thing, because I'm going to add on to something.
Yeah, I think when we spoke about Netflix and chill, which would be the reverse, the other version of Netflix, that would be the best thing to do. I'll let you go on, because you was preaching.
There are certain videos, and there are certain teachers, and there's certain frequencies and certain energy that come off of those YouTube videos that could get you in your lower self. So you got to even be careful with that. I remember 06, 07 when there was a wave of very negative energy coming forth in the community. There was this wave, it was almost toxic coming through the screen. That shit had me in my lower nature. When I finished watching the videos, I was stuck. Okay? It didn't uplift me. It did not enlighten me. It didn't speak to my higher chakras. It spoke only to my root chakra. So, you gotta be very careful. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to go through life just being dragged on your belly like a snake or a serpent or a caterpillar. You want to deal with growing wings like a butterfly. You want to be able to fly. Me, at this stage in life, I'm conserving myself, okay? I'm not being as promiscuous as I was when I, months ago or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm learning the power of preserving my energy. I'm learning the power. Nah, not yet. I'm not there. I'm not a yogi. I'm preserving the power of my semen. Okay, the brother Supernova Slum had put forth a challenge over the summer. You know what I mean? I didn't make it through the whole challenge, but as I tried it out, I was like, yo, this shit works. You know what I mean? So I understand what it does. It gives you more energy. It helps you focus on, you could become more focused and more laser-like. You know what I mean? And then when I see, because like I said, when I'm on 125th Street, unless I have a pair of blinders on, I can't help but to be a purveyor of everything. That's my scrolling screen. I'm seeing everything. And if I'm not in control of my lower self, what does that mean? I will be the nigga running from behind a table chasing every jiggly ass. And then I will be, spreading myself very thin. And then what does that lead to? That leads to I'm having a whole bunch of children all over the place that are they're being raised by themselves or without without the parents in the home. Because when you just bust a nut or when it's just a hit and run, you don't intend to be in that person's life forever. And we see a lot of that. So we have to be more in control of our sexual nature, because black people, we are sexual. Our nature is sexual, very high in sexuality. We are very high sexual natured people as it is. We got hot blood. You feel me? So I'm talking about not falling into the sexual nature of another group and another race of people who are very dog-like, whose nature when it comes to sex, they got women eating out of dog bowls. Okay, let's keep it a buck. These people are savage. So not becoming or out-savaging the savage and raising back up and being more like we were when we were in the East.
I definitely appreciate the conversation, y'all. I hope that people see the connection, because not being disciplined and not controlling your sexual urges definitely leads to a lot of single-parent households, because you really don't like the other motherfucker. You really just went at it for sex, but you couldn't control yourself. You ain't have on a condom, or you couldn't pull out in time, or whatever. You was drunk, you was high, whatever the case is. Now you got a baby. Now that kid ain't got a full-time mommy. Now the kid ain't got a full-time daddy. So it's very important. We trying to eliminate the single-parent household. We trying to raise these responsible households. Leave your contact info for y'all before we close it out.
Yeah, you can follow me at Instagram, DJ Elektra Music. And check out my website. That's www.entglobal.org.
KTL Empowerment at Gmail, kingscounty.com, kingscounty.bigcartel.com, Indiegogo, Facts Initiative, Love and Light to the Family. Peace.
Anthem on the track.
Yeah. King shit. Yeah. Look. From the city where the bums rich. Skyscrapers block the rays when the sun hits. One time coming, niggas run quick. By the time a baby walk, he got a gun grip. I was made for this. 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 I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this. I was made for 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 this.